Soyeon's hands trembled as she held the letter, the morning sunlight streaming through her kitchen window making the paper appear almost translucent. Her husband Junsu's familiar handwriting filled the page, but the words were anything but familiar. The letter detailed his plan to disappear, to fake his own death to escape mounting debts she hadn't known existed. Each sentence struck her like a physical blow, revealing layers of deception that had been building throughout their marriage. And if you want a handsome CEO in your life and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The kitchen, once a place of comfort where they had shared countless meals, now felt foreign and cold. Soyeon's coffee grew cold on the counter as she read the letter for the third time, trying to understand how the man she had trusted completely could orchestrate such an elaborate betrayal. Bank statements and legal documents scattered across the table told a story of hidden accounts, massive loans, and systematic deception that had been happening right under her nose. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls from creditors, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. The reality of her situation crashed over her in waves. Not only was she alone, but she was also potentially responsible for debts she hadn't even known existed. The carefully planned future she had envisioned crumbled before her eyes. In her state of despair, Soyeon found herself driving to the old family ceramic factory. The building stood quiet and neglected, its once bustling workshops now silent. As she walked through the dusty halls, memories of her grandmother flooded back. She remembered watching the old woman's skilled hands shape clay into delicate forms, transforming raw earth into pieces of art that carried their family's legacy. Her grandmother's voice seemed to echo through the empty spaces. Creating something beautiful takes time, patience, and the courage to start again when things fall apart. These words, which had seemed like simple wisdom during her childhood, now carried a deeper meaning. Standing in her grandmother's old workshop, surrounded by abandoned pottery wheels and kilns, Soyeon felt a spark of something beyond her grief, a desire to rebuild, to create something new from the ashes of her shattered life. The business networking event she attended the following week wasn't her idea. Her friend had insisted, saying she needed to start thinking about her future. Soyeon had gone reluctantly, feeling out of place among the confident executives in their tailored suits. That's when she met Min Jae. He stood out immediately, not because of his expensive suit or his position as CEO, but because of how he listened. While others at the event engaged in shallow networking, Min Jae showed genuine interest in her family's ceramic tradition. His eyes lit up when she described her grandmother's techniques and the factory's history. Traditional craftsmanship combined with modern business strategies could create something extraordinary, he said, his enthusiasm infectious. Your family's legacy doesn't have to end here. Min Jae's words struck a chord. He wasn't offering empty sympathy. He saw potential where she had only seen ruins. When he offered to help revitalize the factory, Soyeon found herself considering possibilities she hadn't dared to imagine since finding Junsu's letter. As they discussed preliminary ideas, Min Jae's business acumen became evident, but it was his genuine respect for the artistic tradition that truly impressed Soyeon. He asked detailed questions about the manufacturing process, the historical significance of certain designs, and the unique qualities that had made her family's ceramics special. Their conversation extended long after the event ended, moving to a quiet cafe where they continued discussing possibilities for the factory's future. For the first time since Junsu's disappearance, Ian felt hope taking root. The pain of betrayal didn't disappear, but alongside it grew something new: determination. As they parted ways that evening, Min Jae handed her his business card. "Think about what we discussed," he said. "Your grandmother built something valuable, and with the right approach, you can build something even greater." Walking home that night, Soyeon felt different. The weight of Junsu's betrayal still pressed on her shoulders, but it no longer felt crushing. She had found a direction, a purpose that went beyond her failed marriage. The family factory, which had been a symbol of loss and faded glory, now represented possibility. Min Jae's presence transformed the old ceramic factory like sunlight breaking through clouds. He introduced modern inventory management systems and digital marketing strategies, but always with careful consideration for preserving the traditional craftsmanship that made the ceramics special. So-yeon absorbed every lesson, spending long hours studying business fundamentals and modern manufacturing processes. The learning curve proved steep. So-yeon discovered that running a business required more than just artistic skill. She immersed herself in spreadsheets, market analyses, and supply chain management. Min-jae noticed her dedication, often finding her still at work long after the other employees had left, poring over business texts or practicing new glazing techniques. "You remind me of myself when I first started," he told her one evening, bringing her a cup of coffee. "But remember, sustainable growth requires balance." His concern touched her, different from Jun-soo's dismissive attitude toward her ambitions. Min-jae saw her as an equal, someone capable of achieving her goals with the right guidance. The factory floor gradually came back to life. Min-jae's innovations included a sophisticated online platform where customers could customize their orders, blending traditional designs with modern preferences. So-yeon's artistic background proved invaluable as she helped create digital templates that maintain the essence of her grandmother's designs while appealing to contemporary tastes. Their first major success came 3 months into the revitalization project. A luxury hotel chain placed a substantial order for custom dinnerware. So-yeon spent countless hours perfecting the designs, combining traditional Korean patterns with modern minimalism. The client's enthusiasm validated their approach, proving that tradition and innovation could coexist beautifully. Sales began to climb steadily. Each success, however small, helped rebuild So-yeon's confidence. She started to see herself differently, not as Jun-soo's abandoned wife, but as a businesswoman capable of standing on her own feet. The reflection in her office window showed someone stronger, more assured than the woman who had read that devastating letter months ago. One evening, as they celebrated securing another significant contract, Min-jae shared his own story. They sat in his office, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. He spoke of his early struggles, of losing his father's company to mismanagement and spending years rebuilding from nothing. His vulnerability surprised her. Most successful CEOs she'd met preferred to project an image of effortless achievement. "Every failure taught me something," he said, his voice soft with remembrance. "But the hardest lesson was learning to trust again after being betrayed by my own board members." The parallel to her situation with Jun-soo hung unspoken between them. So-yeon found herself opening up about her own pain, about the shame and anger she'd felt upon discovering Jun-soo's deception. Min-jae listened without judgment, his presence providing a safe space for her to voice feelings she'd kept bottled up for months. Their conversations stretched into the night, moving from personal histories to shared dreams for the factory's future. Min-jae described his vision and for expanding their market internationally, while So-yeon shared ideas for incorporating traditional Korean pottery techniques into contemporary designs. The emotional connection deepening between them felt different from anything So-yeon had experienced with Jun-soo. Where her ex-husband had demanded support for his ambitions, Min-jae offered partnership. Their professional relationship had evolved into something more profound, built on mutual respect and understanding. As they finally prepared to leave the office, Min-jae hesitated. "So-yeon," he said, his usual confidence wavering slightly, "I want you to know that my investment in this factory isn't just business. I believe in you, in what you're capable of achieving." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. So-yeon felt her heart race, both thrilled and frightened by the intensity of her feelings. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message. The universe, it seemed, had other plans for their evening. The text message that interrupted So-yeon and Min-jae's moment came from an unknown number, but its content froze So-yeon's blood. "I'm back. Meet me at our old cafe tomorrow morning." She recognized Jun-soo's writing style immediately, the casual command so characteristic of him. The phone slipped from her trembling fingers, clattering onto her desk. Min-jae noticed her distress immediately, but So-yeon couldn't bring herself to explain. How could she tell this man, who had helped rebuild her life from ashes, that the very person who had reduced it to ruins was suddenly back? She made an excuse about feeling unwell and left the office, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. The next morning, So-yeon found herself standing outside the cafe, where she and Jun-soo had shared countless dates during their courtship. Through the window, she saw him, alive, well-dressed, and seemingly unburdened by the chaos he had caused. He looked exactly the same, down to the way he stirred his coffee with precise, clockwise movements. When she entered, Jun-soo stood and smiled as if nothing had changed, as if he hadn't destroyed her life with a single letter. "So-yeon," he said warmly, reaching for her hand. She kept her arms firmly at her sides. His smile faltered slightly before he launched into his explanation. The story he told seemed pulled from a television drama. He claimed he had stumbled upon evidence of corporate corruption while working at his previous company. The threats had started immediately, he said, forcing him to enter a witness protection program. "I couldn't tell you," he insisted, his eyes pleading. "They were watching our house. I had to protect you." So-yeon sat rigid in her chair, each word from Jun-soo's mouth landing like a stone in her stomach. The elaborate tale he wove contradicted everything she knew about him, about their life together. She remembered the bank statements she'd found after his disappearance, the massive gambling debts, the empty joint accounts. "I've been following your progress with the factory," he continued, either oblivious to or ignoring her tension. "You've done amazingly well, though I'm a bit concerned about your involvement with Min Jae. His reputation in the business world is complicated." The mention of Min Jae's name from Jun-soo's lips felt like a violation. So-yeon found herself defending Min Jae before she could stop herself, describing his help and support. With each word, Jun-soo's expression darkened slightly, though his pleasant smile remained fixed in place. Over the next few days, Jun-soo's presence haunted So-yeon like a persistent shadow. He sent messages asking about her day, appeared unexpectedly near the factory, and even attempted to contact some of their old friends to vouch for his story. Each interaction left So-yeon feeling increasingly unstable, questioning her own judgment. The worst part was how his reappearance affected her work. During meetings, she found herself distracted, wondering if Jun-soo's claims about witness protection could possibly be true. While reviewing designs, her mind wandered to the years they'd spent together, searching for signs she might have missed. The confidence she had built over the past months began to crack. Min Jae noticed the change in her. During a project review, she missed several key points, her usual sharp attention to detail clouded by internal turmoil. He waited until the other staff left before gently asking what was troubling her. Looking into his concerned eyes, So-yeon finally broke down and told him everything about Jun-soo's return. Min Jae listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly concerned. When she finished, he remained quiet for a long moment before speaking. "So-yeon," he said carefully, "I need to tell you something about Jun-soo. Something I discovered during our initial business assessment of the factory." Before he could continue, they were interrupted by an urgent call from the production floor. The moment passed, but So-yeon could see that Min Jae wanted to say more. The weight of unspoken words hung between them, adding another layer of complexity to her already confused emotions. Min Jae's unfinished revelation about Jun-soo weighed heavily on So-yeon's mind as she tried to maintain focus on the factory's operations. His attempt to warn her remained interrupted by constant emergencies and Jun-soo's increasingly frequent appearances at the factory. Min Jae watched these intrusions with growing concern, his usual calm demeanor showing cracks whenever Jun-soo appeared. During a crucial meeting with potential investors, Jun-soo arrived unannounced at the factory, claiming he wanted to support So-yeon's presentation. His presence created an immediate tension in the room. While So-yeon presented their growth projections, Jun-soo interjected with comments about their shared vision for the factory's future, effectively undermining her authority. Min Jae, sitting at the back of the room, noticed how Jun-soo's interruptions subtly diminished So-yeon's achievements, making them seem like extensions of plans he had allegedly started before his disappearance. After the investors left, Min Jae pulled So-yeon aside into his office. "We need to talk about Jun-soo," he said, his voice tight with contained emotion. His presence is affecting our operations and, more importantly, it's affecting you. He revealed that he had hired a private investigator to look into Junsu's claims about witness protection. None of it checks out, Soyeon. The company he claimed was corrupt? They have no record of any investigation or whistleblower during his employment. Soyeon absorbed this information with a strange sense of numbness. Deep down, she had known Junsu's story was fabricated, but hearing concrete evidence still hurt. Min-jae continued, explaining that he could help her legally prevent Junsu from entering the factory premises. His protective instinct touched her, but it also sparked a flash of independence. "I need to handle this myself," she said firmly. "I can't keep letting others fight my battles." Junsu, perhaps sensing the shifting dynamics, changed his approach. He began appearing at the factory during off hours, offering to help with inventory or cleaning. These gestures reminded Soyeon of their early marriage when his charm had seemed genuine and caring. Some employees, especially those who remembered him from before, began to warm to his presence, creating a subtle division in the workplace. The situation reached a breaking point during a traditional ceramics demonstration for a major client. Soyeon had spent weeks preparing, incorporating her grandmother's techniques into modern applications. Just as she began demonstrating a particularly delicate glazing technique, Junsu entered the workshop. He positioned himself among the spectators and started sharing stories about teaching Soyeon these methods, though he had never shown any interest in ceramics during their marriage. Min-jae, watching from the sidelines, saw how Junsu's presence affected Soyeon's usually steady hands. He stepped forward to intervene, but Soyeon caught his eye and subtly shook her head. She forced herself to focus on the clay beneath her fingers, channeling her grandmother's teachings about finding strength in tradition. Later that evening, Soyeon found herself alone in the workshop, trying to center herself through the familiar motions of throwing clay. Junsu appeared in the doorway, his shadow falling across her work. "We made a good team today," he said, moving closer. "Just like old times." The comment ignited something in Soyeon, anger, perhaps, or finally, clarity. She stood up from the pottery wheel, clay-covered hands clenched at her sides. "There were never any old times like that," she said, her voice steady. "You never cared about this place until it started succeeding." Junsu's pleasant mask slipped for a moment, revealing something calculating beneath. Before he could respond, Min-jae appeared, carrying documents that would later prove crucial to understanding Junsu's true motives. Min-jae's arrival with the documents created an immediate shift in the workshop's atmosphere. He held a folder containing what appeared to be financial records, but before he could explain their significance, a heated argument erupted between him and Junsu. Soyeon watched as the two men, each representing vastly different chapters of her life, confronted each other. The argument centered on Soyeon's role in the factory's future. Min-jae accused Junsu of attempting to manipulate his way back into a position of authority, while Junsu questioned Min-jae's true intentions toward both Soyeon and the business. Their voices echoed through the workshop, disturbing the usual peaceful atmosphere of the space, where Soyeon's grandmother had once taught her the value of patience and calm. Soyeon attempted to intervene, but Junsu's next words stopped her cold. "You think you know him?" he sneered, gesturing toward Min-jae. "Did he tell you about his connection to the investors who forced your grandmother to take out those loans?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke, and Soyeon turned to Min-jae, searching his face for any sign of deception. Min-jae's expression darkened with a mix of anger and what appeared to be guilt. He began to explain, but Soyeon had already stepped back, the weight of potential betrayal crushing her chest. She needed space to think, to breathe, to understand. Without another word, she left both men standing in the workshop and retreated to her office. Over the next few days, Soyeon threw herself into work, avoiding both Min-jae and Junsu as much as possible. She focused on an upcoming exhibition, channeling her emotional turmoil into creating new pieces that combine traditional techniques with contemporary designs. The work provided a temporary escape from the complicated reality of her personal life. However, the tension in the factory grew increasingly palpable. Employees began taking sides, some sympathizing with Junsu's claims of being a misunderstood victim, others remaining loyal to Min Jae's leadership. The division affected productivity and morale, threatening the progress they had made over the past months. The situation reached its breaking point during a late-night firing of a special order. So-yeon had stayed behind to monitor the kiln, a complex process that required careful attention to temperature and timing. She noticed smoke coming from the electrical panel near the main kiln, but before she could react, sparks erupted and flames began spreading rapidly across the wooden beams of the old building. The fire alarm blared through the factory, and So-yeon's first instinct was to save the irreplaceable molds and designs her grandmother had left behind. As she headed toward the storage room, she found Min Jae already there, having returned to the factory to leave those documents he had tried to show her earlier. Together, they worked to salvage what they could, the heat and smoke making it increasingly difficult to breathe. Through the chaos, Junsu appeared, supposedly having seen the smoke from nearby. Instead of helping, he focused on trying to convince So-yeon to leave everything behind. "Let it burn," he urged. "We can start fresh, just you and me." His words, spoken while Min Jae risked his life to save her family's legacy, crystallized something in So-yeon's mind. The fire department arrived quickly, but not before significant damage had been done to the production area. As So-yeon watched the firefighters work, she stood between Min Jae and Junsu, the three of them covered in soot and smoke. The physical damage to the factory reflected the emotional devastation of the past weeks, but something else was emerging from the ashes: clarity. In the days following the fire, the true extent of the damage became clear. The production area had suffered significant damage, though thankfully, the most valuable historical pieces and molds had been saved thanks to Min Jae and So-yeon's quick actions. The insurance assessors moved through the building, documenting everything while So-yeon watched with a heaviness in her heart. Min Jae approached her as she stood surveying the damage, still holding the folder of documents he had tried to show her before the fire. This time, she was ready to listen. The papers revealed a complex history. Min Jae's father had indeed been one of the investors involved with the factory years ago, but not in the way Junsu had implied. Min Jae's father had actually fought against the predatory lending practices that had hurt So-yeon's grandmother's business, leading to his own removal from the investment group. "I wanted to tell you sooner," Min Jae explained, his voice carrying the weight of long-held guilt. "I've spent years trying to make amends for what that group did to family businesses like yours. It's why I was at that networking event the day we met. I wanted to help, but I feared you wouldn't trust me if you knew about my father's connection." While processing this revelation, So-yeon received an unexpected call from one of Junsu's former colleagues. The conversation confirmed what she had begun to suspect. Junsu's return coincided perfectly with the factory's first signs of significant profit. His sudden interest in the family business had nothing to do with reconciliation and everything to do with opportunity. Standing amid the charred remains of the production floor, Min Jae presented his vision for rebuilding. His plans went beyond mere restoration. He proposed modernizing the facility while preserving its historical elements, creating a space that would honor tradition while embracing innovation. The project would require significant investment, but Min Jae believed in the factory's potential. Junsu, however, had his own proposal. He suggested selling the damaged property to developers, arguing that the insurance payout combined with the land's value could provide a fresh start elsewhere. His plan involved relocating to a smaller facility, focusing on mass production rather than traditional craftsmanship. The way he presented it made So-yeon realize how little he understood about what the factory truly meant to her. During a crucial meeting with the insurance company, Junsu's true motives began to surface. He had arrived uninvited and attempted to position himself as a co-owner, claiming rights to any potential settlement. The insurance representative, however, produced documentation showing that Junsu had attempted to take out a separate policy on the factory months before his disappearance, a policy that would have paid out to him alone had it been approved. This revelation struck So-yeon like a physical blow. While she had been mourning his death and struggling to rebuild her life, Junsu had been calculating ways to profit from her family's legacy. The contrast between his actions and Min Jae's consistent support became startlingly clear. Min Jae's reconstruction plans included a modern design studio where So-yeon could teach traditional techniques to a new generation of artisans. When he showed her the blueprints, she recognized elements from conversations they'd had months ago. He had been listening, truly listening, to her dreams for the factory's future. The reconstruction planning coincided with a major ceramics industry exhibition in Seoul, where So-yeon had been invited to showcase her designs. Despite the factory's damaged state, she decided to participate, seeing it as an opportunity to demonstrate the resilience of her family's legacy. The exhibition would also serve as a platform to announce their rebuilding plans. In preparation for the event, So-yeon spent countless hours perfecting a new collection that merged her grandmother's traditional techniques with contemporary aesthetics. The pieces represented not just artistic evolution, but her own personal growth. Each ceramic piece told a story of transformation, of beauty emerging from adversity. Jun-soo, learning of the exhibition, made one final attempt to insert himself into So-yeon's success. He arrived at her temporary workshop with what he claimed were potential investors, former business associates who, upon closer inspection, had questionable reputations in the industry. His proposal involved using their investment to take the business in a completely different direction, focusing on mass-produced items that would sacrifice quality for quick profit. "Think practically," he urged, his voice taking on the same persuasive tone she remembered from their marriage. "This is a chance to build something bigger than your grandmother ever imagined." But So-yeon heard what he wasn't saying, that tradition, craftsmanship, and artistic integrity meant nothing compared to profit margins. Min Jae, who had been overseeing the reconstruction plans, noticed So-yeon's distress. During a quiet moment after a planning meeting, he shared his own experiences of choosing between quick profit and lasting value. "Success built on compromised principles is like a house built on sand," he said, not pushing her to make any particular decision but offering perspective from his years of business experience. The exhibition opening arrived, and So-yeon's booth attracted significant attention. Her new designs, displaying the perfect balance between tradition and innovation, drew praise from critics and potential clients alike. During her presentation, she spoke about the factory's history, its recent challenges, and her vision for its future. The conviction in her voice surprised even herself. Jun-soo appeared during her presentation, attempting to network with her contacts and position himself as part of the factory's future plans. However, his behavior struck a discordant note among the genuine appreciation for craftsmanship that filled the exhibition hall. Several attendees, longtime supporters of traditional Korean ceramics, noticed his disconnect from the artistic values So-yeon championed. The turning point came when an international museum curator expressed interest in commissioning a special collection, specifically citing the authentic traditional techniques So-yeon had maintained despite pressures to modernize completely. The curator's words validated her commitment to preserving her grandmother's legacy while allowing it to evolve naturally. After the exhibition's success, So-yeon returned to the factory to oversee the ongoing reconstruction. While sorting through items saved from the fire, she discovered a leather-bound journal tucked away in an old celadone vase, her grandmother's diary. The pages, yellowed with age but perfectly preserved, contained not just personal thoughts but detailed insights into both the art of ceramics and the business of running the factory. The diary revealed that her grandmother had faced similar challenges decades ago. During Korea's rapid industrialization, she had refused numerous offers to mechanize the factory's production process completely. One entry particularly struck So-yeon. "Our strength lies not in making more pieces faster, but in making each piece carry the weight of our history and the touch of human hands." As So-yeon read deeper into the journal, she discovered that her grandmother had documented specific techniques that had been passed down through generations. These weren't just manufacturing processes, they were artistic traditions that had survived centuries of change. The diary contained detailed notes about glazing techniques that had been considered lost, including a particular blue glaze that had made their family's ceramics famous during the Joseon dynasty. Min Jae, seeing her absorbed in the diary, shared her excitement about these discoveries. He immediately recognized the historical and cultural value of these lost techniques. Together, they began discussing ways to incorporate these traditional methods into their modern production process, creating a unique selling point that would set their products apart in the contemporary market. However, the diary held more than just artistic secrets. Between its pages, So-yeon found letters and documents that painted a clearer picture of the factory's history, including records of past dealings with Min Jae's father. The documents confirmed Min Jae's earlier explanation. His father had indeed tried to protect small traditional businesses like theirs from aggressive corporate takeovers. During this period of discovery, Min Jae revealed his own vulnerability. One evening, as they reviewed the diary's contents, he confessed that his drive to help the factory stemmed partly from wanting to rectify the damage done by other investors during his father's time. "My father always said that preserving cultural heritage was more important than quarterly profits," he explained, his usual confident demeanor softening with emotion. Jun-soo, upon learning about the diary's discovery, attempted to claim partial ownership of its contents, arguing that any business insights it contained should be considered joint property due to their marriage. His attitude toward the diary, seeing it only as a potential source of profit rather than a precious family legacy, provided So-yeon with yet another stark reminder of the fundamental differences in their values. The diary's discoveries precipitated a series of events that forced So-yeon to take decisive action. During a meeting to discuss the factory's reconstruction timeline, Jun-soo arrived unannounced with his supposed investors. Their presence created immediate tension, especially when they began questioning the value of maintaining traditional production methods documented in the grandmother's diary. Min Jae's family, particularly his conservative father, had initially expressed reservations about his deep involvement with So-yeon's factory. They worried that helping a divorcee rebuild her business might damage their family's reputation in Korea's traditional business circles. However, during a tense family dinner where So-yeon had been invited, she spoke passionately about preserving cultural heritage through their work. Her sincere commitment to honoring traditional craftsmanship while embracing necessary innovation impressed Min Jae's father, reminding him of his own past struggles to protect small businesses. The factory reconstruction reached a critical phase when So-yeon had to make a final decision about the production layout. The choice was between maximizing efficiency with modern assembly lines, as Jun-soo's investors suggested, or creating a hybrid space that would preserve areas for traditional handcrafting while incorporating modern technologies where appropriate. The decision would define the factory's direction for years to come. During this period, So-yeon successfully developed a new ceramic line incorporating her grandmother's recently discovered blue glaze technique. The pieces garnered immediate attention from collectors and museums, validating her commitment to preserving traditional methods. This success strengthened her position against those pushing for complete modernization. A pivotal moment arrived during a demonstration of the traditional glazing technique for potential clients. So-yeon worked with steady hands, explaining each step of the process her grandmother had documented. The room fell silent as she recreated the centuries-old blue glaze, the color emerging from the kiln exactly as described in the diary. Even Jun-soo's investors couldn't deny the unique value of these traditional methods. However, the demonstration was interrupted when one of Jun-soo's former business associates arrived with revelations about his real motivations. The associate, feeling guilty about their past schemes, exposed how Jun-soo had planned to gain control of the factory only to sell it to a large development corporation. The property's location, it turned out, was valuable for a planned commercial complex. Min Jae, who had suspected something similar, produced additional documentation confirming these claims. The evidence showed a pattern of behavior that extended back to before Jun-soo's disappearance, suggesting his entire reappearance had been orchestrated to take advantage of the factory's growing success. The truth about Jun-soo's schemes emerged during a crucial board meeting where the factory's future direction was being decided. The meeting room, still carrying traces of smoke damage from the fire, served as a fitting backdrop for the final confrontation. So-yeon stood at the head of the table, her grandmother's diary open before her, as she addressed the assembled investors, board members, and employees. The revelations about Jun-soo's true intentions unfolded like a carefully constructed puzzle falling into place. Financial records proved that he had been secretly negotiating with a development corporation months before his disappearance. His staged death had been meant to pressure So-yeon into selling the property, but when she instead revitalized the business with Min-jae's help, he was forced to return and attempt a different approach. More shocking was the discovery of Jun-soo's connection to Min-jae's past. Years ago, Jun-soo had worked briefly with the same investment group that had opposed Min-jae's father's efforts to protect traditional businesses. This connection explained his intimate knowledge of the factory's financial history and his attempts to manipulate So-yeon's trust in Min-jae by twisting the truth about the past. The Development Corporation's representatives, present at the meeting, appeared uncomfortable as their role in Jun-soo's scheme became clear. Their plans for the property would have erased decades of cultural heritage, replacing the historic factory with a modern shopping complex. The publicity from So-yeon's recent successful exhibition and the discovery of the traditional glazing techniques had made their position increasingly untenable. Min-jae, who had remained quietly supportive throughout the revelations, finally shared the complete story of his family's connection to the factory. His father stood up during the meeting and formally apologized for the investment group's past actions, announcing his intention to establish a foundation dedicated to preserving traditional Korean craftsmanship. This gesture transformed the meeting's atmosphere from confrontational to collaborative. Faced with the overwhelming evidence of his deceptions, Jun-soo attempted one final manipulation. He appealed to So-yeon's memories of their marriage, claiming everything he'd done had been for their future together. The moment hung in the air as everyone watched for her response. As Oh-yeon looked from the diary to the factory blueprints, then to Min-jae, who maintained a respectful distance, allowing her to make her own choice. In that moment, So-yeon experienced perfect clarity. She recognized that her grandmother's diary had provided more than just technical knowledge. It had given her a blueprint for living with integrity and purpose. The choice between preserving her family's legacy and succumbing to the pressures of pure profit was no choice at all. Standing before the board, So-yeon announced her decision. The factory would remain true to its heritage, while embracing thoughtful modernization. She revealed plans for an educational center where traditional techniques would be taught alongside modern methods, ensuring their preservation for future generations. The Development Corporation, sensing the shifting tide of public opinion, withdrew their interest in the property. The story concludes with So-yeon standing in the reconstructed workshop, watching apprentices learn the newly rediscovered glazing techniques. Min-jae works beside her as a partner, their personal and professional relationship deepened by the trials they've overcome. The factory stands as a testament to the possibility of honoring tradition while embracing change, and to the power of choosing authenticity over expedience. Jun-soo's final departure comes not through another deception but through the simple recognition that he has no place in the world So-yeon has built, a world founded on the principles of craftsmanship, honesty, and respect for heritage that her grandmother's diary had reinforced. The factory, like So-yeon herself, emerges from its trials stronger and more resilient, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.